all those souls.
Hello ladies and gents, fellow patient gamers and regular gamers alike. Jarek Defiler here with another gaming video on the tubes of you. If you're somewhat familiar with my small channel, you know that I'm a big, nay, huge, no, gigantonormous-a-thon fan of video game soundtracks. Yeah, quite literally my favorite genre of music, followed by Scandinavian melodic death metal. Now, I've done a couple of videos on video game soundtracks before in long form, more meant to be listened to rather than watched, like a podcast when you're in your daily commute or doing cardio at the gym kind of thing, but although I recommend those soundtracks, I realized I never did an actual rank list of my favorites, so I thought I'd rustle up a short video showcasing my top 10 video game soundtracks of all time. The context of this list is that I focus on the soundtracks that are more on the soothing, calm, and relaxing side of music. Stuff that I listen to regularly when working, writing, or reading. So no Doom 2016 or Metal Hellsinger here, sorry. And be sure to keep an eye on the screen as I won't be giving out audio samples like my other soundtrack videos. Instead, I will show a textual list of some of my favorite tracks for each game. Being that this list is completely subjective and all my own personal opinion, I would like to emphasize that if anyone disagrees with this list, you are just plain wrong and the CIA and the demons of the 2nd and 7th circles of hell are on their way to your house. So let's get started, breakdown. Number 10, Diablo 2. Composed by Matt Ullman, I believe it's Ullman, I'm going to be butchering names throughout this video by the way. My favorite game of all time, the iconic Diablo 2, sports an absolutely stellar and atmospheric soundtrack that just melds masterfully with the game's dark themes and tone. Ullman always set himself apart with a very unique style of music that you just don't hear anywhere else. Just take a listen to the infamous track Tristram and you'll understand what I'm saying. Lots of guitars, flutes, and more unique instruments such as goblet drums. Truly phenomenal stuff here, and the Diablo 2 soundtrack really burned its brand onto my eardrums as well as my heart, and partially my loins. Well worth the listen for you dark souls out there. Number 9, Shadowrun Dragonfall. Composed by John Everest, beloved tactical RPG Shadowrun Dragonfall hosts another great soundtrack that stands out in its uniqueness. Being a sci-fi game, the soundtrack is mesmerizing and chill, often causing you to bob your head up and down uncontrollably. Each track really flows well with the game's atmosphere and never gets old. This soundtrack I would say has the best beats on my list, meaning it really gets your blood pumping without grandiose scores of Star Wars level orchestras. It's just cool, really. It sets off this chill vibe that makes you feel like you're some cyberpunk hacker infiltrating your friend's mom's chonies drawer. It's kind of hard to place it in a specific genre when it comes to its style because, like many soundtracks on this list, there's just not anything else that sounds like it. Well worth the listen, well worth the pinched nerve in your neck from all the head bobbing. Number 8. The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. My favorite Elder Scrolls game has a soundtrack composed by my favorite composer of all time, Jeremy Soule, the God King of soundtracks, for gaming anyways. We'll be seeing more of him on this list, you can believe that. But Morrowind was the game that got me into video game soundtracks. Not only was that iconic title screen that set the template for the Elder Scrolls theme prime and setting you up for an awesome adventure, but hearing the various tracks play out as you explore this fascinating world was a glorious experience to behold. Wish I could go back and do it again for the first time. Still to this day, Blessings of Vivec is my favorite orchestrated work of all time. With other great tracks to accompany you in this ash-laden realm, Morrowind was a breathtaking adventure that introduced many to the Elder Scrolls franchise, which ultimately ushered in one of the greatest selling RPGs of all time. But damn that soundtrack, boy. I could listen to it all day. And you should too. Breakdown. Number 7. Deus Ex. Deus Ex, a sci-fi action RPG released back in the year 2000, is another one of those soundtracks that just stands apart, as nothing else sounds like it. Composed by Alexander Brandon, Dan Gardopi, and Michael Vandenbos, the Deus Ex soundtrack holds some essence of the 90s gaming scene, but with a flair for the dramatic. There's a lot of pieces that are powerful and energetic, but they still hold this chill vibe much like Shadowrun Dragonfall. And like most of the soundtracks on this list, the music meshes masterfully with the game itself. Sci-fi spycraft and intercontinental espionage oozes from Deus Ex's soundtrack, instilling within you the inspiration to plow forward, enhancing your cybernetic augmentations while pacifying or just slaughtering baddies. Really a unique soundtrack here that everyone should taste at least once. Number 6. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. Yet another great soundtrack from the great Jeremy Soule. Oblivion takes Morrowind's style and mixes things up a bit. Jeremy Soule seemed to explore a bit more in this soundtrack, as it's less straightforward and more experimental than Morrowind. But it's still amazing all the same. Lots of notable pieces that cause you to close your eyes and sit back as if you were standing on the grassy hills of Cyrodiil, looking over the Imperial City as a warm breeze envelops you and a timber wolf nibbles on your calves. The Oblivion soundtrack has many calm-inducing tracks that suck you into the game's atmosphere in a way that only Jeremy Soule can. One of my most listened to soundtracks, and for good reason. Number 5. Stellaris. Paradox's Sci-Fi 4X grand strategy game, Stellaris, probably is my favorite sci-fi soundtrack of all time, just given its eclectic nature. Composed by Andreas Valdotov and Burt Meyer, Stellaris and its DLCs all have phenomenal soundtracks that really capture that spacefaring feel. From ambient tones to extravagant battle pieces, each track is masterfully handcrafted to assist you on this galaxy-conquering journey. There are so many good tracks here, each grasping that atmosphere sci-fi pleasure ride that whisks you away to distant planets and meetings with all kinds of alien species. Just like Crusader Kings 2, Andreas Valdotov knew exactly how to capture the game's themes with his music and really grant the player an exceptionally authentic experience because of it. Highly recommend checking out the music to all the DLCs because they're all great. Number 4. Divinity Original Sin 2. Ah yes, my second favorite game of all time. Composed by Borislav Slavov, Divinity Original Sin 2's soundtrack is just phenomenal. A fantastic work of art that manages to wrap the player in a blanket of immersion with each biome, environment, or fight they partake in. There are tracks that will make you laugh, some that will make you cry, and others that will make you want to pick up your sword and march down to your local Thai restaurant. Not for any violent means, mind you, just because their food is so good. Gotta get them drunken noodles, nah mean. But Divinity's soundtrack is great at instilling these emotions in the player in a way that not many video game soundtracks can, even those on this list. I suppose the game's flawless writing and execution deserves most of the credit here, but Borislav for sure was instrumental in making this game as iconic as it is. There are a plethora of fantastic and unique tracks in this work that you'd do yourself a disservice not to give it a listen, even if you haven't played the game. Number 3. World of Warcraft and all its expansions. Possible contender to number 2 on this list, World of Warcraft has one of the most expansive and eclectic soundtracks out there, mainly because the composer pool is so vast and the soundtracks have been created over the span of almost 2 decades now. Yeah, we're that old. The original game's music was composed by the great Jason Hayes, but we also have multiple contributions over the years from esteemed artists such as Matt Ullman, Russell Brower, Neil Acree, Derek Duke, Glenn Stafford, John Haidt, Jake Lefkowitz, David Arkenstone, and more. It took me 143 times to get Jake Lefkowitz right. Anyways, WoW's music is truly iconic, breathtaking, and just all around atmospheric and cinematic at the same time. Many good memories played out to the sound of pounding drums, wailing violins, and sensual vocals. And on a side note, if you guys dig WoW's music and atmosphere, check out one of my favorite YouTube channels, Messio, I have no idea, who specializes in World of Warcraft music compilations set to the game's environments, especially one of their more recent releases, Emerald Dream. Makes your ears melt, to tell you what. Number 2, the Talos Principle. Composed by, oh god, I always butcher this one, Damian Mravnak? Or is it Damjan? I think it's Damien, I don't know. The Talos Principle soundtrack is a breathtaking conglomerate of captivating piano meditations, haunting vocals, subtle synthetics, and an overall feeling of philosophical quandaries that gets your brain meat broiling. The music of Talos Principle is almost a mystery all on its own, lending to the game's puzzle-solving themes and questioning of oneself, but it's also infinitely soothing, calming, relaxing, and meditative. It was like it was designed to lull you to sleep while you try to figure out what's the meaning of existence. Besides number 1 on this list, the Talos Principle is probably my most listened to soundtrack. It just chills me out and sometimes even puts me to sleep. And I'm sure there's no subliminal messages in there telling me to buy the next Crow Team game. That said, Talos Principle 2 did just come out in the second. I kinda went under a lot of people's radar it seems, but nope, I'm a patient gamer, must resist. Either way, the original soundtrack is a masterpiece in my awesomely humble opinion, and if you're studying for classes or writing up the memo for your next board meeting, I highly recommend you give it a listen and let it take you away. Number 1. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. Yeah, not a big surprise here, I suppose. Jeremy Soule makes another appearance on this list as what I consider to be his best work, Skyrim. One of what I consider to be the most immersive and fundamentally flawless soundtracks out there, Skyrim's music just sucks you in and melds you into its world. Track after track just massages your eardrums with honey and plucks your heartstrings with soft, gentle strokes. There isn't a single piece of the Skyrim soundtrack that I don't like. Every single one just adds to the game. The creeping ambience of dungeons, the mellow tones of in-music, the vibrant charge of battle tracks, and the ultimate calm of Skyrim's atmospheres while you're walking through a meadow day or night. It all lends to this aura of relaxation that immerses you in the game's beautiful world. There are few soundtracks that touched me like Skyrim's, and it's not even my favorite Elder Scrolls game. But no one can deny that the game's music was paramount in pulling the players into its warm embrace of lore, atmosphere, and themes. Thank you, Jeremy Soule. So there you have it, ladies and gents, my top 10 favorite video game soundtracks of all time. But tell me, what's yours? Do you guys like the more calming, soothing soundtracks like yours truly? Or do you prefer the more energetic and heart-pumping soundtracks that get your blood moving? Let me know in the comments after you hit that like and subscribe button and possibly share this video. Until then, this has been Jarek Defiler, the Soundtrack Monk, signing off. You all have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night depending on where you are. And go enjoy some great video game music. Breakdown.